Hey guys, welcome back. Today we'll be looking at the last part of the room, Kubernetes best security practices on TryHackMe. We've done the previous parts in two videos and we are going to be doing the practical aspects in this video today. Now you're supposed to actually click the start machine button here. I already did that to save us a bit of time. And you're supposed to start Minikube using Minikube stats, which I had already done, just to make sure we are right on time. Just like a brief overview, we are at Kubernetes Laboratories and we've been assigned a ticket, which is to review role-based access control configuration for test chambers checker. So what this means is that we have something to do, and which is to review RBAC configuration. It's a walkthrough, so you practically have everything explained on the left side and the terminal is on the right side. So we just have to do what we've been giving directions to. We've started the mini cube as instructed. Let's take a look at the test chamber namespace. So this is the namespace that we are supposed to check for the RBAC configuration. So we are going to check that by doing kubectl get ports. If by chance you don't understand any of these commands, you can easily paste them into ChatGPT and it's going to give you an explanation for that. But this is just to get the pods that are present in this test chambers namespace. The dash n is indicating namespace. As you can see, we have three pods. That's this deployment, the other deployment, and the third deployment. And we also have the pod status checker running. So we can see that three test chamber pods are running, as well as the pod status checker. And this ticket says that we have to review the RBAC configuration for the pod status checker. The ticket details the purpose of this checker, and it is simply to list the status of the pods in the test chamber and log it. So basically, this pod status checker is supposed to list the status of the pods in the test chamber's namespace, then log it. So now we are going to get some more information about the pod using this command that has been given here. We are going to describe the pod pod status checker in the test chamber's namespace. So to do that, we are going to type our kubectl describe pod in the namespace test chambers, and the pod we are interested in, that's the pod status checker, and we have our information. We've also been told that we are supposed to look at the first few lines of the output. We are going to scroll up a bit and come to the first few lines. Having it at the back of our mind what this pod status checker is supposed to do, just log the status of the running pods, right? Now we can see that it is having some funny permission. Okay, we have the name, which is a pod status checker, and the namespace is test chambers, correct? We can see here that the service account that is assigned to it is pod admin. And we know what it means when we are having admin access or admin privileges as an account, right? Way even before talking about Kubernetes, ordinarily having admin role is a lot of privileges, right? So now the ticket also tells us that the pod runs using the pod admin service account, which we now know. It uses the pod admin role, cluster role, and is bound to the pod admin service account using the pod admin binding, cluster role binding. That's interesting because if it's just supposed to, it doesn't even need a cluster role binding in the first place. It doesn't need access to the cluster. It's just that namespace that it is supposed to have information about. So we are going to be looking at the cluster role and the cluster role bindings using the following commands. kubectl describe cluster role in this namespace test chambers for the pod status checker. I really like to type it because it makes me get familiar with the commands. Okay, pod status checker not found. Did I type something wrong? Oh, sorry. We are actually trying to describe what this role is. Okay, so we are going back a bit. Let's go back to our previous command and we go to the pod admin role. We are trying to describe what we have here. So we are going to go through this and we can see that this pod admin role has access to these resources, which is the pods, the secrets, and the services, and it gets permission to get, list, create, and delete. Interesting. That's a lot of access. Let's do for the cluster role binding too. I mean, the cluster role binding just binds the cluster role to the account. So we can just skip that. Now we know that it has all this access, which is too much. Now we need to reconfigure it such that we are giving it the least privilege access. To do this, we've been told to follow the steps. We are supposed to create a service account called pod checker. Then we are now going to create a role named pod checker role that only has access to get and list, which is what the pod status checker is supposed to do. To do this, we are going to create our service account. Excuse me. So kubectl create service account. We can also write this as SA pod checker. Then in the namespace -n, don't forget test chambers. That's the name of the namespace. Okay. You can see that we have the pod checker created. Just to confirm if it is there, we can just list kubectl get pods in the namespace test chambers. We are only getting pods. I didn't ask for the service account. Okay, so I'm just going to get to this place and SA. Am I right? I hope I'm not leaving the scope of the. Oh yeah, great. We have our service account called pod checker. We can see it here. So this was the default. This is the default one. The pod admin that was initially assigned to the pod checker status, and we also have the pod checker that we just created. As you can see, that's 40 seconds ago. Now we are going to create a role named pod checker role, which can get and list pod resources. First of all, you come into your word editor. Let's use Vim, and we are going to name the file pod checker role. You can name it for your convenience anyhow you want it. I mean, it could be pod checker role, it could be checker role, it could be pod checker. Just make sure that it was wrong. Pod checker role is going to be a YAML file. So we are going to open up our word editor, and if you come up a bit here, just for the configuration details. Okay, so this is what a role look like. The definition, you can just conveniently copy this, mm, copy this, then you come to the clipboard, paste it here, then we do our own editing. So we have a pod checker role, pod, then we have our namespace, which is, what's our namespace again? Test chambers, if I'm correct. We have our namespace called test chambers. So we are going to change this to test chambers. Let's make sure everything is in place. Test chambers. Then we are going to assign it just 2 rows to get and list, because that's all you need to do in the rule sense. Get and list. So we are going to be removing That means we're removing this, and just check if everything is okay. Everything is okay. We copy this, copy, and we are going to paste it here. Yeah, and we are going to save. Now we are going to create this, and that's just the file. kubectl create file pod checker role .yaml. Now we have our pod checker role. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake in my naming. I didn't add D to my, okay, so just remove the D, the D. Okay, now this is, I did pod checker dot row dot nice, nice. Okay, now this is, I just need to rename the PO. I need to stop this habit of not checking my commands before running them. Now that I've renamed it, I can do the needful. We have our pod checker role that has been created. We've been told to create a role binding that binds the pod checker role to the pod checker service account. We are going to do that using our Vim. That's Vim pod checker checker. Guess my hands are faster than my mind. Role binding dot yaml, right? And for a simple role binding template, you can just scroll up here, come down to this part of the exercise, and we have our role binding. Copy this, so this is a role binding, pod checker role binding. We edit appropriately, pod checker role binding, and we have our test chambers namespace. I find it easier to edit here, right? So if you find it easier to edit in the Vim editor, that's fine also. So what's the name of the service account? Pod checker. Pod checker. And we have the namespace, that's test chambers. Also, the kind is row, pod checker row. We have the row that we are binding to the account, pod checker row. And I think that's all. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, we are good to go. Copy, close, paste. Everything good, everything good. So save and exit. Now we are going to create this file using kubectl. Kubectl create file pod checker role binding. Now that has been created. What else were we asked to do? as step 2 or maybe step 3. We're also told to delete the pod status checker pod. Delete pod in the namespace, test chambers, then pod status checker, pod status checker deleted, right? Good. Then we are supposed to make changes to the YAML file that has the pod checker configuration so that the pod uses the pod checker service account. Now, what we are having now is we are going back to the pod checker YAML file because it has been, why is it not? Interesting. Because it has been reconfigured with a new service account called pod checker, we are going to go back to the YAML file and edit it and tell it not to use the pod admin. Instead, it should use the pod checker service account. How that makes sense? I'm going to find my way to this directory as it has been given. Please be mindful of the pods and it's case sensitive. Pod config pod checker .yaml directory. Oh, sorry. Let me find my way to yes ls. Okay. I'm supposed to use my word editor. Pod checker car dot yaml. Now this is the config file and we can see that the name is pod status checker. We have the service account pod admin and that's what we are going to be editing. We are going to be changing this to pod checker instead of pod admin. We are going to be applying this configuration. Okay. Everything is fine. I'm going to Ctrl C, Shift WQ. Read only option is set. Add exclamation mark to override. Press enter. Okay. It seems can't open file for writing. Let me just exit. Oops. Okay, let's open it with sudo privileges. Hi. Okay. Oh, we are good to go. Now we are going to apply this configuration. So all we are expected to do run the following command pip6cl describe to pod checker. To test chambers. I see that the pod checker role that we created, this is just describing what it is. It only has access to the pods, and it's only allowed to get and list the pods. In summary, what we've been able to achieve is that we have a pod that is supposed to just check the status and list what's going on, right? However, this pod is overconfigured, meaning it has more access than it requires. You can get, you can list, you can create, you can lead, you can delete services, delete secrets, and also pods because it's using the pod admin role service account, the pod admin service account, right? Now we need it to not use the pod admin service account. We need it to use something smaller with least privilege. And that's why we created another service account called pod checker with limited access and with limited access using the role and role binding. We are using role and role binding because it only needs access to the namespace. It doesn't need access to the whole cluster. I hope that makes sense. And we've been told to paste this output in this base 64 encoder. I'm going to open this in a new tab. I'm going to copy this. Mm, we'll come to an end of this security practices room. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any question or you have what you would like me to answer or how you would like me to go about it next time, kindly let me know in the comment section. Thank you.